In the best of the rest of the news, is the white race under threat in America? Are white college students around the nation at a disadvantage because of the skin color? Is the entire nation headed for a critical moment in the near future when minorities overtake whites and all hell will break loose? My next guest apparently thinks so, or maybe not. We'll find out. And he's already taking steps to prepare, including trying to form a whites-only student union where he goes to school at Towson University. Joining me is Matthew Heimbach, a college student and founder of the White Student Union at Towson University. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you, Tom.
Thanks for joining us. So, why do you feel that whites need a white-only student union? I don't get it.
Well, the simple fact that you're asking that question proves the reason why we need it. That whites for so long have not had the ability to organize, and we have legitimate political interests.
Whites run this country.
Whites do not run this country.
Oh, come on.
No.
Have you looked at the color of the faces in Congress?
Looking at demographic trends, by 2040...
No, I'm talking about right now.
Talking about right now, that two political parties that I really can't decipher the differences control the country. White, I don't really think has a problem with that. The individual white Americans are openly being discriminated against in terms of hiring practices, acceptance to universities, affirmative action programs discriminate.
Do you know what white privilege is?
White privilege is, I mean, that's a Marxist term, which is constant. It's a repeated idea.
The average white family in America has a wealth of about $87,000. The average African-American family in the United States has wealth of around $5,000. If you're a member of the Lucky Sperm Club into one of those white families, then you've got that backing you up. You've got generations, multiple generations of being literate, of being free, of being able to work wherever you want. If you're born as an African-American, it's a very different world. It's a very different place.
Of course, considering my ancestors come from, Ireland, so kind of the real question is, we were not always allowed everything. Irish need not apply is a big thing.
From the late 19th century.
Right. Well, you look like groups like the Ku Klux Klan, which openly discriminated against Catholics. You look even in the 1960s, the idea that JFK was going to be a Catholic president, that sent shockwaves through the nation. So whites have experienced discrimination.
Some whites have experienced discrimination, and largely it's been local, and largely it's been one or two generations, and mostly it didn't have to do with the color of their skin or even their religion or their ethnicity. It had to do with the fact that they were immigrants. That was in almost every case. That was anti-immigrant sentiment. That's why, there's questions in the 1850s about, is there an Irish gene where they're all crazy? And in the 1880s, is there a Sicilian gene where they're all mobsters? These were just first-generation immigrants. But I can understand when whites are a minority, if those numbers flip, and whites are born with far less wealth on average than people of other races, I could understand saying, okay, we're now an oppressed minority, let's get together. But, us white guys run the world right now.
See, but that's a false idea. The idea is simply because we're so far the majority. Look in terms of women. That there are feminist groups where, for instance, at Towson University, women make up 65% of the population. Just because they're a numerical majority, does that mean they shouldn't have the right to organize and express their best political interests?
Women are still oppressed in the United States. Women still make less than men, still make, 76 cents to the dollar for men.
Looking in terms of white students, affirmative action in terms of getting accepted to the university level, that I could be more qualified as a candidate, have higher SAT scores, have a higher GPA, have more extracurriculars, but in the name of diversity, I wouldn't be able to go to university and we bring in someone who is less qualified.
You're arguing that it's a zero-sum game, and it's not, or at least it shouldn't be a zero-sum game. I would think that you should be out there arguing in favor of free college education for everyone like we had in the United States before Ronald Reagan's presidency.
I mean, we're not talking about paying for college. I'm talking about simple acceptance and being able to be judged someone. I mean, Martin Luther King said very famously, judge someone on the content of their character, not the color of their skin.
But you're doing all this based on the color of the skin.
No, we're looking at there's discrimination based on the color of our skin, where if I could be denied a job, a scholarship, or even being allowed to be into college because of the color of my skin, where I could be more qualified.
Do you support secession in the southern states?
I do support secession.
So what are they going to do with the black people down there?
Well, when we seceded originally in 1860 and 1861...
You made them slaves.
No. Well, in terms of, first of all, let's look at the slavery issue. That there were slaves in the North. You look at Ulysses S. Grant was a slaveholder after slaves were legally freed. So bringing up the South and bashing us over slavery, I mean, that's a red herring argument. But secondly, the idea of secession, I believe in self-determination for a people. That if a people want to be able to stand up for themselves and run their own government...
Do you agree with Rand Paul that basically the non-discrimination laws are a violation of property rights? That if you own a store, you should be able to put a whites only sign out front.
Just as I believe someone who runs a black store should be able to put a blacks only sign up. I believe that we should have freedom of association.
That's the kind of country you want to live in.
No, it's
where there's open racial discrimination.
The Constitution is the country I want to be able to live in, where the
Constitution has slavery in it.
No, the Constitution.
Well, it doesn't anymore, but it did. If you're talking about the original Constitution.
No. Well, actually, it didn't. The only mention of slavery in the original Constitution
was that after 1808. There couldn't be any more importation and sale of slaves.
Yes, but it wasn't enshrining slavery in our Constitution. But simply the 10th Amendment, a state has a right because the people of the state have the ability to determine what they want to do in their own states.
Do you think that most of the secessionists in the South are really thinking in terms of let's have a white South?
I think we're looking at simply having our South back, the ability for the Southern people to be able to run our own affairs.
Matthew, I got it. We're flat out of time. I wish we had more. Thank you very much for coming by. Matthew Heimbach.